of the Commissioners for Finance, sometimes weekly. Today is November 1st, 2023. Appointed hour 1:30 has arrived. So we'll call the meeting to order. Begin, as we always do, with an opportunity for public comment. Okay. Hated pens are the worst pens ever, by the way. So we have the minutes of our October 25 meeting in hand. We'll be looking for action on that.
Move to approve the minutes of October 25th.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to our topics of discussion for today. We have a number of them on the docket here. So we're going to begin with our regular quarterly update from CAEDC, Cumberland Area Economic Development Corporation. We've got a very nice handout here. You're going to walk us through it and answer any questions.
So happy November. Thanks for having us here today. We've given you a nice fall picture of the area to look at in our presentation. There it is. There we go. So I wanted to start off because this is our quarterly update as well as our budget request with some of CAEDC's accomplishments for 2023. I'm going to start in the area of administration. There are many administrative items that were taken on in the last year. Our strategic plan, as you know, was completed at the end of last year. And we are now reporting to you and the board in alignment with that strategic plan on how we're doing. We completed and implemented a compensation study. We moved our offices from Carlisle to Mechanicsburg. We've done some work with our banks and a couple items to note are collateralization of our accounts. As you may recall, there were some issues with some banks earlier in the year, and we took that on to make sure that our funds were collateralized as well as negotiation of interest rates. We had 2 clean audits, both CAEDC audit as well as the Cumberland County Industrial Development Authority. And we are the staff for the CCIDA. Both of those came back clean. We've done a lot of board work. We did do orientation of our board members as well as committee members early in the year. We looked at the materials, we've updated those to give a more complete orientation. We put in place a new recruitment plan for committee and board members, and we've established a nominating committee. We did some training with staff on the Sunshine Act and other professional development type trainings, as well as completing a health insurance outlook so that we were prepared for our new negotiation of our health insurance. We did hire a consultant to help us with our employee handbook and a new employment application to make sure that we are compliant. In the area of economic development, we were able to maintain our CEDO, which is the Certified Economic Development Organization, and PETA lender status with the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. We exceeded our engage required visits to businesses with more than 28 that started at the beginning of the year. We did hold a workforce hospitality event where we had 17 local businesses in the hospitality area register and come and talk about their workforce needs. And we've been working with them on solutions to meet those needs. We have submitted and are maintaining 5 applications for LSA funds from last year that were funded in 2022. We've supported 5 new applications for the Category 4 LSA grants. That is new to Cumberland County this year. And we are in the process of working on at least 5. We believe it could be between 5 and 11 submissions for statewide LSA funds. We have gotten nearly $300,000 out from our local revolving loan fund, which includes some of the ARPA dollars that you awarded us last year. So we continue to get those out. We have more than $450,000 in SBA 504 lending that we've helped to put together. We have been re-engaging the Cumberland York Local Defense Group and connecting with the local base leadership for that in Mechanicsburg, New Cumberland, and with the Army War College. We will be attending Senator Rothman's Veterans Breakfast on Monday, November 6th, in hopes of recruiting some new folks to help us with the CYALDG. And we continue to manage $156,000 of grants from the Department of Community and Economic Development, Pennsylvania Military Community Enhancement Commission. We have been working on the Alliance and reimagining what the Alliance will look like going forward. This year, we did have more than $74,000 in Alliance revenue and more than 56 Alliance members. We have prepared 3 lunch and learns during 2023, and we are in the process of scheduling 6 more for 2024 so that we can move that forward. And with that, I will turn it over to Kristin.
Yeah, so just high level tourism and marketing accomplishments this year so far. So the big one, which I'm sure you're all aware of, is we relaunched our grant programs. So we brought those back. Those are being very well received. We're working through the requests for meetings right now before we can start reaching out to people that we know needed funds the past couple of years. And we're also getting ready to launch the new destination sales grant. So that grant will allow us to help bigger events and bigger projects that are going to bring in significant overnight stays into our county. We started working with a new advertising agency. This one has specific and very tailored tourism experience in our industry. So we're really excited to be moving forward with them. And we grew a bunch of statistics. We grew traffic to both of our websites. We grew engagement and participation in our existing trails. And we launched 2 new trails this year, the Coffee and Chocolate Trail and the Farm Fresh Trail, which was a revamp. We also held some events specifically for our tourism partners. We held a big collaborative tourism partner event with over 80 people this summer, and we're also hosting some industry roundtables towards the end of the year, one for our downtown partners and one for our outdoor recreation partners. And these continued partner interactions will be a big focus for next year. We're hoping to have a lot more roundtables for our tourism partners to come together and some specific industry roundtables so people can meet people in their sector of our tourism industry. PR efforts going strong this year. We've had 32 destination stories and 17 specifically about CAEDC as an organization. We opened a satellite visitor center at TCO Outdoors. Our sales efforts have produced over 1,100 room nights. Some of those I've reported to you in the past, PIAA, PSAC Swimming, working with Big 33 and a national technical conference were just a couple examples of what led to that. And then we hit some social media milestones, which I wanted to share with you because that is a big way to drive new visitors to see our destination, to be interested in traveling here. So with that, we'll switch over to our budget review, and we've shared some of this information in the past, but Cumberland County hotel tax is currently at 3%. We're one of the lowest in our region here in South Central Pennsylvania, and increasing to 5%, which is the allowable amount, will help us support our strategic plan, and it also will help us remain competitive in marketing and selling our destination to drive visitation and continue to support partners and projects that'll enhance the visitor experience, which we believe will ultimately benefit the local business community and strengthen our overall quality of life here in Cumberland County. So with that, we wanted to outline some key investments that are here in this bulleted list. These are really where we see investments over the next couple of years and what we've been sharing with our partners on how we would make good use of those funds. So obviously we want to really grow our grant funding and grant opportunities to help our partners build product for people to come visit. We want to invest in marketing and advertising. That is the core function of us as a Visitors Bureau destination marketing organization. We want to invest more in those experience trails I mentioned earlier. They have been a great success and really the core of our marketing over the past couple of years. We want to continue to play a role and partner and help and assist the county in leveling the playing field for short-term rentals and how our lodging properties and bed and breakfast can feel they're on a level playing field with the short-term rentals. Also, just increased cost of business. Our vendor costs continue to go up, and we want to make sure we remain competitive with other visitors bureaus and make sure we can invest in the research and data and vendors we need to do our job correctly. And then obviously an investment in economic development to support quality of life and make sure that our county is capable of supporting a tourism industry. So those are kind of our, like I said, top categories moving forward. And then Janet's going to focus specifically on next year.
So our specific needs for our 2024 budget, you will see that we have given you a couple different models to look at. We did one with no increase, and we have a gap, and we did one with a 5% increase in the hotel tax, and still have a smaller gap to fill. In 2024, investments have been planned in some of the same things that Kristin mentioned: tourism grant funding, advertising the destination, bid fees to support new events that drive visitation, data and increased reporting to make strategic decisions, both for economic development and tourism, and economic development initiatives to assist businesses here in Cumberland County. The next slide, we will share some proposed solutions and our request. Our increase in hotel tax from 3 to 5% is one of the solutions that we would recommend. And we have provided you a chart that shows what that revenue looks like at each of the levels. We have increased that at 3% to 5%, with half of the year at 5%. We've also shown you what a full year at 5% would look like. And the second thing that we would recommend or request is, you'll notice that even when we move from 3 to 5%, we still have a gap in our funding. So our request would also include a change in the split from 86%, 13.34, meaning tourism to economic development, to 80% and 20%. You will still notice that there is still an increase in tourism revenue at that split that we are suggesting. This does take care of the gap and allows economic development to continue and our budget to move forward without any requests to the county this year for any funding.
Yeah, and with that, in this process, we've met with a lot of our partners, specifically in the tourism industry and even more specifically in the lodging community, to gauge their support of this. And that's what's in the folder, our CAEDC folder that I have in front of you. And there are letters of support, and they represent 17 lodging properties, 3 of our big key attractions, and also a past tourism grant recipient. So I wanted to make sure you had those as well. And with that, we'll open it up to any questions.
I have a couple. One of the goals is to increase the tourism grant. And I noticed that between 2010 and 2020, the amount that was granted was 1.9 million. It seems low. What do you forecast for, say, the next 5 years, assuming this hotel tax gets passed?
Yeah, so I would say to the first part of your question that tourism grants were not as much of a primary focus in the past as we're proposing that they are moving forward with this new funding layout. So it would be a complete shift in spending. I believe in our budget for 2024, where we only had the hotel tax kicking in halfway through the year, I think we were considering 400,000, around approximately between 400 and 500,000 being used for tourism grants. But we want that to continue to be a more significant portion of what we do for the next years to really help our partners grow.
Really different question. How many full-time employees are there now? If you don't know that.
No, we have a complement of 15.
And with the hotel tax requested increase of 2%, which means that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the hotel rate is $100 per night. It would technically go up to $102, correct?
Math, no.
So, if it's $100, it would go up to 105. So.
Well, no, it's $3. Well, let's say that
If the room is $100 a night,
They're
then
paying
it would be a
$3.
5%. So right now it's 103, it would be 105,
so it would go up $2. Okay.
correct?
Now, Janet, from your talk with the hotel owners and so forth, and yet you do not know the answer to this, are they going to absorb that or will they actually pass that on?
I could speak to that if you want me to. Yeah, I met with the hoteliers and we also did a meeting with our lodging partners as a group. Not all of them had time to submit letters of support, but we received no pushback. Many of them have properties in other counties surrounding ours and are already paying that. Our rates here in Cumberland County are already lower than our surrounding counties, so they see it not impacting their ability to sell their rooms really in any significant way.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Would you please tell me about your destination sales grants?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a new program. We're still working through the committees to get it completely finalized. We're hoping to have it launched maybe the end of the month. But these would be able to, somebody looking to come here and plan an event, an example could be PIAA in the past. Or at a future example, maybe Big 33. Could apply for us for funding to cover fees to use the facility, rental facilities, marketing the event, different costs they need that might be barriers to bring an event from an existing area to here or to grow a new event entirely. And the requirements around that grant will include a number of overnight stays, and we'll working with the committee to determine what level of funding would need to require what level of overnight.
You'll also note, sorry.
Yeah.
You'll also note that we did not take out all of the smaller bid fees. We've left those in for some of the smaller events that are coming so that we're not competing with between a large and small event. We think it's important to look at both.
Yeah, we want some flexibility to be able to help those ones that might pop up on a smaller scale. But this also, I think, makes it more even and fair for those asking for funds. In the past, they were just in our budget and we were trying to fulfill requests as they came in. And I think through this grant process, it'll make it a more fair process.
Is there going to be a match on those grants?
There's required to be a match on those grants. Any hotel tax used requires for every dollar, you have to put in 25 cents, I believe is the required match.
And that's a requirement.
That is a requirement.
Okay.
And our CAEDC requirement is 50 cents for every dollar.
Okay. Is the CAEDC requirement within reach of people that would come and ask for a grant?
It has been to date.
Okay.
It has not been a barrier at all to date. And that decision was made prior to me with our previous grants, but the decision there between leadership and committees was we want to make sure projects are serious and invested and have some stake in the game of their project.
another question about your estimated hotel tax revenue in this scenario where there's no increase until June. And why wait? Why would you put that scenario out
So
there?
that is us being, one, a little conservative, and two, our hotel tax checks come in on a 3-month delay sometimes. So even if it started in January, we wouldn't be seeing that for 3 months into the year.
Okay, okay. I like all the letters. I see you have one from Carlisle Events. I think that's super important that this is here. My next question is this increase on the MOU split. Stacey, has our solicitor approved that? Has our solicitor looked at this and said, yep, we can do this? I know it is the first.
I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I know that he has reviewed these agenda items and had indicated that if you are interested in moving forward, he would be the one to help finalize any wording. So
Okay,
he has reviewed it and he hasn't shared any concerns with us.
okay. I would want to make sure that I want that ironed out from our solicitor. And you're saying that with this additional revenue, Janet, that you will, if the scenario is if you presented it, you will not be coming to the county for general fund dollars.
Not this year, for sure.
Okay, okay.
That is correct.
And this kind of a change. Janet, how long have you been at CAEDC?
So 18 months.
18 months. Okay. So this kind of a change, this level of investment. What do you see in the future for CAEDC with this level of investment? Like, will there be an ability to increase your economic development investment? Will we see these numbers go up in a meaningful way? Tell me what your plans are, what you're thinking about.
So a couple of things. I mentioned the Alliance. We are revisiting and looking at the Alliance. We would love to have more community investment in economic development in CAEDC. That helps us with our investment into the economic development side. We're also building relationships with our local partners and banks, SBDC, attorneys, etc. And that will also help us raise funds. Every grant that we do does provide us with some additional revenue for our economic development side. So the goal would be, I mean, we're still coming out of COVID, making sure, and I hate saying that, but making sure that businesses are moving forward, we then can move forward. So grants and loans and things that produce revenue for CAEDC have to continue to grow. This is a way to make that happen and get back to the level of revenue from those things. So that we can continue. I mean, we will always have vendor costs continue to go up and our cost of doing business. So we want to backfill that with investment from the community in the form of loans, grants, and community investment.
Okay. I think that was all I had.
I think you answered most of mine proactively. The only question I had, and it's kind of a peripheral thing, is the LSA. Is when that was first rolled out, those guidelines were really super bare bones, and it raised more questions than it answered. Have they refined those guidelines at all, or are we just operating on the original?
No, they did change them between last year and this year. They are more defined. And the state is not accepting as many applications, broad applications as they did initially. And we have also honed in a little bit closer to our mission. making sure that projects that we support are either economic development related or tourism related.
That sounds great. Yeah, there was a lot of gray area in some of those things that somebody could have created problems. So that's good to hear. All right. I think that's everything I have.
Gary, as this involves a couple of things in my office, can I get some clarity on some of the proposed items?
Sure.
So Janet, I know we had spoken and I had mentioned that I was moving forward with a solution, so I may be able to save you $30,000 in that budget with a compliance monitoring tool. But what was your proposed interest or use with that?
So we were looking at Granicus, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
And I know that we have had that discussion with you. We were considering sharing the cost with you, or perhaps buying the software so that the county would have it to level the playing field for all.
So I think did you guys participate in the meeting that was held with the townships?
We did not.
Okay, I know you were aware of it, or
Yes.
Kirk had indicated. So the path that I was going down with that is with a lesser cost provider, and would be shared, if possible, with the municipalities for enforcement. The module that we would be using for recognizing those and getting them into compliance with us, it would also involve enforcement at the county level or at the municipal level potentially,
Right.
if need be, and if the municipalities choose to. So that model was that I was looking at was about $7,000. And would be something that if we're able to share information for enforcement may be of great value to the municipalities. So that's that we're going down a simultaneous path a bit on that. But if we were able to share it with them for enforcement, we may be able to share it with you as well for whatever purposes of identification you would need in that regard.
So we put together, we're excited to hear that, first of all. We put together a budget to include it, but we can certainly put those dollars into other uses if there is no need. We want to partner with you. We're not looking to duplicate what you're doing.
My I guess point was, and just if you're able to share information with municipalities to assist them, versus a government being able to do that with an intergovernmental agreement. So I don't know that it would necessarily be the best spot for CAEDC to be taking on that, but it's all being studied right now and it's in the hands of the solicitor's office at the moment. But the reality, I guess, commissioners, from my perspective is we talk in amounts that sound de minimis, like 3% and 2%. But the reality is it's about this hotel tax is averaging about $2.5 million a year. This will be an additional $1.5 million or more. So it will take the total for them, north of $4 million of revenue that'll be generated out of the county. That's not de minimis. And the impact, should they do this, when you look back, they have not had a commitment to the tourism grants, which I appreciate that they are now focused on. But over the 13-year period, as Vince alluded, the $1.9 million, they received $24 million over that same time period. It's about an 8% of a commitment in those grants. So I don't know if there's some way for them to make some sort of commitment that if that is a priority, that they will in fact commit to a level of funding in those grants at a certain level that is appropriate for the funding, the gross amount of funding that they're receiving.
I would need to go back to the board to discuss that, but the board is very open to being committed to tourism grants. I've heard nothing but positive from the board, so happy to take that.
I'll throw in, and I know you weren't here, so, but I mean, tourism grants were always a priority. And one of the problems we faced early on was that the money that was earmarked for tourism grants originally was already being sent to Army Heritage Center, which was supposed to be on a 3-year basis. I think we've got year 7. Commissioner Rubino and I decided that needed to be 3 years to have been enforced. We backed them down for that. So that made the money available. I remember the first round because we actually had some applicants who didn't want to apply. And we went to municipalities and nonprofits, and it took, I think, a little bit of time to get folks up to speed on it. I'm not sure at what point or for what reasons it kind of lost emphasis, but it's always been in the planning that was particularly, I recounted the story before about Shippensburg. Bruce Hockersmith told me at the time when he was mayor, he said, we'll never get it. We're just little Shippensburg. We never get anything. Some days they still say that. So, but we encouraged them to apply, and they got a nice grant because they have some great Civil War stuff down there. The murals that are on the buildings now and such came out of those, directly out of those grants, and some reenactment stuff as well. So I'm not sure at what point these numbers fell or the emphasis on it fell or what reason. So do we have any?
I can speak a little to that if you want me to. I am remembering too, when we launched the tourism grants years ago, a big focus was supporting our small tourism partners. And the grant requests were significantly lower. To allow people, we paid for a lot of people to get new signs, to get brochures. Brochures were a big item when we first launched these tourism grants. So I think that might be part of it too, because we did hand out a lot of grants, but the first few years they were to support smaller initiatives, smaller tourism partners. The tourism product development grant was a newer addition at the higher level of investment. And those are longer projects that our tourism partners took a while to get their project together and everything they needed to even be able to submit for that level of funding. And then to answer your final question, they were paused during COVID. Yeah. But I think now we're realizing our strategy should be, we've helped as many of our partners as we can get the pieces they need to make themselves be marketable and ready for visitation. And now CAEDC sees a role in investing in larger projects that'll bring in more significant visitation.
So in other words, either by circumstance, not necessarily by design, the emphasis before the bulk of the tourism dollars were spent on essentially industry-wide type initiatives, the introduction of the trails,
Correct.
Outbound.
Yes, which is primary functions of a destination marketing organization. I mean, marketing and advertising and selling this destination has been the significant portion of what our marketing team has been focused on for years.
Are there other counties that have a similar grants program that we've done any comparative work with? Do we know how we stack up?
I don't have the numbers on how we stack, but there are certainly our surrounding partners we work with a lot. Actually, a couple of them were really excited to see us doing the destination sales grant. I think you'll see a couple counties maybe copying that program, but we certainly look to our neighbors to compare what works for them, because it'll probably work here too.
Hey, Kristin, the numbers in here confirm what you're saying. It's 163 projects and 1.9 million. So there's a lot of small items. So
A lot of smaller investments.
glad to hear it's going
Early
to
on.
change. I just have one additional question. Ready to make a motion. What is the effective date of the hotel tax increase are you looking at? Is it January? Is it June? Is it July?
So we would love to have it as soon as you are willing. We were trying to anticipate, which is why we gave you a few different scenarios. But if you're comfortable doing it January 1, willing to move forward with that.
It would seem to
Happy
be
with
the
that.
easiest to, in terms of all the documentation, et cetera, especially for the lodging organizations. So, but
There may be some logistics involved in that. A lot of the lodging payments come from third-party payers. And until, and just for the board's knowledge, the payments are due to us the 20th of the following month. So if it's December, it's through December, it would be due to us January 20th for payment. We're still working that probably 30 days. That's what creates the delay in their payment. So the timing on that, because of these third-party vendors and getting them to get it in their system changed so that the hotels, I think that's very, very quick. It would be a challenge, potentially. We worked through getting one vendor to correct it that was sending us 5%. It took us 8 months to get that corrected through their payment system. So I don't want to be overly optimistic in saying that we can make this turn on a dime because of the other parties involved.
Would April 1 be more of a
So
realistic?
we can shoot for whenever you guys get the resolution. I would assume, we can see how quickly they can do this. But it will impact their payments to us, obviously, and their ability to collect it within their system through their flagship. They may have to go through computer changes with the flag that they work under for the larger hotels.
We're okay with that.
I don't think that presents any problems. Documentation, the cutoffs and everything.
We've reached out to all partners, making them aware. That doesn't mean that they'll do it quickly or, see it right away. So I am fine. I mean, that's why we did the 6-month delay, because we wanted to check our numbers. We felt that was a fair time frame, and if it happened sooner, we would be happy with that.
So we could do this, but have it
Effective.
beginning of Q2. Okay.
So what happens if we do it January 1 and they don't comply? And I'm not saying they're gonna not comply because they don't want to, but because there's red tape and bureaucracy.
They'll be delinquent with us.
Okay,
They'll be delinquent in their tax payment.
Okay.
And that'll be a nightmare
Yeah,
to
we don't-
collect
yeah.
upon, please.
We'd rather everyone.
yeah, no,
comply.
okay.
We used to have, under the prior treasurer, we used to have some significant delays on that money being remitted to you. Is that's all?
We're good.
Okay. And
I might be missing something here. But I'm looking at the ordinance, the previously approved ordinance from 2019, thank you. And with the way that it's worded, and certainly I think our solicitor would be up to the challenge of making sure that it is clear. It's talking about the tax at the time of the, like, for the dates of the booking, if you will, so that any payments in January would be for December, and so that would actually still fall under this ordinance, the 2019 ordinance. However, in February, if you so choose to select January 1, that for any stays in the month of January, that would be what they would be responsible then for providing any updates to the percentage. I mean, that's how I'm looking at this. I'm not an attorney.
No, but it would be that way, Stacey.
Yeah,
It's just, getting all of the folks that actually collect the tax in their systems.
To change it over. Okay, thank you.
It's all the people involved in the food chain of collecting it that would be the challenge.
Thank you.
So I'm hearing April 1 is a reasonable effective date. Okay, I'll make a motion to advertise the preparation and advertising of ordinance increasing the hotel tax for Cumberland County from 3% to 5%, effective April 1, 2024, contingent upon solicitor review and approval.
My second.
Okay, it is moved and seconded. Any further questions? Not hearing anything. Okay, we'll call for it. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. So you have your next business item as a separate.
So we had it as part of the presentation. We were requesting that we look at the memorandum of understanding, which includes the share for economic development at 13.34%, tourism and marketing at 86.66. We're requesting that that be changed to 20% for economic development and 80% for tourism and marketing.
So you've already covered the background of that. So opportunity for questions.
I don't have any. I don't have an objection to it. Just want to make sure that our solicitor is on board.
It's same here. We had discussed this, I think, for quite a while. I know the law. It's what I'm hearing and seeing is pretty big. So it seems like we can do this, but again, as Gene said, that's up to our solicitor to finalize. It sounds like he's pretty comfortable with it, but that could be part of the motion.
Okay. So I will move to modify the allocation of revenues distributed to CAEDC to increase the MOU split from 86.66% and 13.34% to 80% and 20%, with the caveat that the county solicitor needs to review and approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded. Are there any additional questions from commissioners on that? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
I
you.
have one follow-up question.
Yes.
This agreement that's in the packet is from 2009. And it says that the county treasurer shall deduct and retain an administrative fee which shall not exceed in any one calendar year, the lesser of 2%. Kelly, if I'm remembering correctly, it's more than that now, and we need to update this agreement.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
As always. That moves us to our next business item. We have discussion and approval to publish the updated property mapper. And not only Justin Smith is going to give us some information on that. Thank you all for being here, folks.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. He's on. Okay. I think we're gonna need to reload. All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. Here to discuss and present and ask for approval for the improvements we've been working on the property map for the last half of the year. So we've been our goals are to try and build upon the popularity of the property map by improving the update process and providing more information. So we're going to get into all three of these aspects in this presentation. Try to keep it short. We'll talk about the popularity of the property mapper, talk about our update process and how we are making improvements, and then give a demonstration of what we'd like to publish. So I've looked at some Google Analytics of county-owned websites for the last 4 weeks. And I usually go a year, but I only looked at the last 4 weeks because we've had a name change for our domain moved to cumberlandcountypa.gov, so I can't look back for the whole year. So I looked at the last 4 weeks, and there are 2 sites that have more than 10,000 views, the county main page and the property map. And the popularity of the property mappers really our justification as a department to invest in support and development of the product. And it's been since in 2017 since we've had a major change to the application itself. So we're looking to update. If you see here, the county main page has 58,000 views in that time period. The property mapper is 32,000. And the engagement time is time on page. How long do people spend on the page? Now, a short time and a long time is not an indication of good or bad. It's just an indication of how the site is being used, right? The county main page is being used as a start page to go to other destinations. And the property mapper is used as a destination page to search for information.
Don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry. The 32,000 for the property mapper
Yes,
is not part of the 58,000.
no,
Okay, so that's separate.
yes,
Wow. I know I use it a lot.
right. And there's no other county page that gets over 10,000 in that 4-week time period.
Thank you.
People like this page.
Oh,
I
Yes,
get phone calls about this page all the time.
yes.
Yes.
And
mhm.
so getting into those phone calls, we've been working to improve the update process. The update process hasn't changed, until now, the updated process has not changed since 2017. It's showing its age. The property mapper is designed to be updated monthly with the CAMA attribution from the monthly cutoffs from the CAMA system. And we update the line work weekly. We've had some challenges with this process failing to run automatically as it's designed. So we've been updating it manually every month for the last half year. But we've developed new workflows with our software and some FME tools that were purchased around this time last year to automate that and give the ownership of the update process back to the property mapping staff that works on the line work and integrating the CAMA product. So we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of that process, but just a general overview. We have our GIS line work, which our property mapping staff maintains and edits daily. We have the CAMA attributes from the monthly cutoff showing ownership and valuation, location information for the parcels, which is maintained by the assessors. And then we have it all put together in what we call the parcel CAMA layer, the line work plus the CAMA attribution, which we publish onto the property mapper website. And we now have in a test environment, which we can easily scale to a live environment, tools where the property mapping staff can run an FME tool that takes about 15 minutes. It will combine all the data and create this parcel CAMA output. And there's another tool, a GIS tool that takes about 5 minutes that can update the data that's actually being published to the property mapper. So we've developed multiple tools now to give the update power back to the property mapping staff and have it run in a less than half an hour. Okay, so we're looking to include tax estimations in our property mapper for each property. And this is a very simplified sort of what like a code would look like, right? So of how we're calculating that. So we're we're looking at a property, each property individually, and saying if that property has taxable status, then we are taking the total assessed value, multiplying it by the millage rate to get an estimated tax. If that parcel has an exempt tax status, that estimated tax is zero. So it's just really a simplified way of how we're coming to that those tax estimate calculations. Okay, now we'd like to do a live demo so we can cross our fingers. But we're going to look at exactly how these tax estimates look on our lab site, just our test environment, and then look at some commercial properties for this additional information that we're also going to be publishing. Because currently there's no, when you look at commercial properties, there's no square footage or height and stories in the current property mapper. Okay, so this is our test environment. The only difference being that there's a labs here in the middle. So this is the property mapper website with just this labs in the middle. So that's our test environment. Right off the bat, we have our disclaimer in red text here. It doesn't look as good on this screen, but it looks fine on the computer screen, saying a disclaimer on how we're calculating these estimated taxes. Right, because if you read through the very end, it says, while approved clean and green land values are used for tax estimate calculations, homestead exclusion credits are not included in tax estimate calculations. So it's just giving some disclaimers about how exactly we're coming to these tax estimates. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in here on a property. We'll go to a apartment complex right here on the West Shore. Okay, so just click on a property. You can also type in the address or the parcel identification number. And if you go to scroll down, here we have our estimated taxes. Again, we're taking the total assessed value, which is right here, total assessed value for this property. We're multiplying it by the millage rates for county, municipal, and school. And we're getting county estimated taxes due in blue. Down here in the pie chart, there's a companion graphic. Municipal tax estimated taxes in red, and school estimated taxes in green. And then we have a total estimated taxes where we add it all up. Go to a exempt property. Take a look at this elementary school up here. And we can see with this EX suffix, it is an exempt parcel. And there's no estimated taxes because taxes are not due on an exempt property. And we'll go over to look at a warehouse to show these additional attributes we're publishing now for commercial properties. So here we have a warehouse out on Allen Road. Square footage, 800,000 feet, 8 stories, and a primary exterior. These three attributes are not currently on our live property mapper, but we hope to publish on in an update. So we are requesting Commissioner approval to publish these additional data items.
Justin, when would you be able to publish them? Immediately.
In a few days, it's going to take us a few days to move everything around. We have everything's published and live in our test. Everything we have working in our test environment, we're going to have to port over to our live environment. So it's going to take a couple of days to move everything over and make sure everything's working.
The only concern I had was of the legal one, which is right on the front page when you click OK. So I think this is great. I tip my hat to you and you guys. Really.
Thanks.
I mean, right now we have the assessed value, which is important, but to have all this other data is really great.
Residents love the property mapper. They do. I mean, they love it. It's a fabulous tool.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I'm amazed that that's the second most. And if there's such a fall with number 3.
Yeah.
Doesn't even get
It's been consistent like that for years.
That 2 minutes, 21 seconds, that's an average, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
average time on page.
It's probably about 10 seconds higher just because of Stacy, frankly.
Had a survey, but as part of customer satisfaction initiatives, we're considering it.
Okay, good. Yeah. You know, the feedback you get is anecdotal, and it's overwhelmingly good, which tells you something. It would be nice to very forward-looking opportunity to connect with people who are obviously interested in time. Okay, so we're looking for action on that.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve publishing of the updated property map work information as presented today.
A second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded, and if there's no questions, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Very nice. Good presentation. Right, and you have another thing for us here.
Yes.
Updates.
Just a brief update. This on the, thank you. This is just a really quick one-page update. Want to spend some time since we've come before you for approval for our capital project since June. So we want to just give you a quick update on that process. We're still working on a new CAMA system upgrade. On November 9th, we plan to come before you with a contract approval request for Vision. It's going to be about $700,000. So those are our 2 hard dates, right? We'll definitely be in front of you on the 9th, but then we have some estimated timeline moving out from that. Of course, once we get a contract signed and we get the vendor on board, then we'll have more solid dates. But right now we can estimate that the project kickoff will be in January, and that around summer of 24, we'll have a beta testing environment for a new CAMA system. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait to check it out in a couple of days, Justin.
Yep.
Go from 2 minutes and so on, so many odd seconds to 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
on, it's right.
Ladies. All right, our last discussion item on the agenda is the Financial Analysis Committee. This is Q&A regarding the presentation we received last week. Invest Tammy vendor finance.
We're back again. And I just wanted to take a second to kind of discuss something that I didn't think I was clear on in the last presentation. And in our presentations, we always talk about the change being, it can be a millage change, it can be a change in other revenues, and it can also be an expenditure change. And I think it came off as it had to be a millage change, but there are other options. It's not, millage change is not the only option. It can be one, it can be a combination of anything. And I think that it came across as we were saying it had to be 100% millage change. And it is an option, it is not the only option. So I just wanted to put that out there and apologize for that, or if it came across that way. And in light of that, we also made a couple of changes to the projection software that we had shown you, and we won't go into that right now because I know it's 2:30, but maybe the next one we can do it. We separated and and put a line for revenue and a line for expenditure instead of it being the same. It is the same dollar amount, but it should make it more clear. An increase to revenue and a reduction in expenses. And the input of the one-time money can be a positive for, it can be a fund balance reduction. Well, let me rephrase it. It could be related to the one-time monies, or it can be related to expenditure reductions. And now we can move into the questions and answers. And so we had several questions. Would you like us to just say what the questions were and go over them? Or do you want to ask the questions?
I don't know if you had any recurring ones that you might be able to aggregate or if got repeatedly, but is there anything that proactively you wanted to use for clarity like you just did?
And I'd like to hear the answers to Vince's questions, and then I have some more,
Okay,
but I did not send them to you ahead of time, Dana.
oh, that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
And I also have some more questions, Dana.
Okay. And then you did have a question at the last presentation about the constant dollar with the tax. We haven't answered that too. We'll start with that one, then we'll go right to Vince's because it's we have a picture for that one. Oh. I threw Brandon into this quick, sorry. So we showed the current dollars, the 2014, $100 was 80 cents in tax revenue. 2021, it was $125.80 in tax revenue. If you apply the constant dollars to the $125, it's actually $109. So the taxpayer has $109 and our tax revenue in real dollars is 80 cents. And Tammy and I will probably tag team. I'll start out answering and she'll fill in the gaps if that's okay. So Vince, did you want to ask the questions or do you just want us to state what the question is?
Yeah, I had just do that. Dana, thank you. I left my questions elsewhere.
How do other counties measure their reserves? In other words, do they use days on hand or percent of budget? And it's a combination of both. Some counties use percentage, some use days, but it calculates to the same general thing. The GFOA recommends that a county or a municipality, that governments look at their own circumstance and take into account their cash flow needs and other things, but under any circumstances, it should be no less than 60 days. We calculated our fund balance because I think that covers the next question too. We calculated our cash flow balance on two things. One, minimum cash needs, because we don't get tax revenue in from January through mid-April. They start coming in March, but it takes until about mid-April until we're receiving more revenues than our expenditures are. So based on that, we need 70 days to get us through that time period. If we go less than that, it could require a tax anticipation note. There are other things that change and shift through the year, so it's not a guarantee that we would need a tax anticipation note. For example, right now we have the ARPA funding on hand. If 70 days is not the requirement with all of that cash on hand. But if we didn't have all of that funding on hand and it's 70 days, that makes sense. And then why did we choose 100 days? Because it gives us the flexibility to respond to emergency situations. We're able to continue to fund our expenses through a state budget impasse. It gives us the opportunity that if there is a major expenditure that we weren't expecting that comes up, we stay above the 70 days and we have time to react without having to do a knee-jerk reaction and do a tax increase in a year maybe that it's not conducive to do. And so that I think explained is the 100 days of reserves truly necessary. And yes, we can see other budget scenarios that don't require a tax increase. And for time constraints next week, if it's okay, we'll come back with some ideas of different expenses and revenues that we can change, and we'll put them in and show you different scenarios. In regard to question 3, what if we freeze future raises to COLA only? I am assuming that is freezing the steps. And the step is worth about $900,000, and that would be about 1.5% change. And since we are hiring a grant administrator, what do we expect regarding grant revenues for the first few years? And I believe that we estimated originally at about $500,000 to $1 million in additional grant revenues. We have called Franklin County, and they do. Yes. We didn't go into a lot of detail. We need more time to look at it, but at face value, we are also already receiving some of the grants that they are using to. They use their grant administrator to get. We've already been receiving them. So I think there's more grant money to be had, and it's probably looking at things like, but without, like, for example, if we would do the new building, by becoming more energy efficient, there could be grant monies out there for that. There's different types of grants we could go over that could help lower our expenditures. But I don't think it is the thing that's going to keep us from having to look at making changes in the future, be it. And are there capital expenditures that can wait? Yes, there are. And one of the things that we also can do is we still have some capital expenditures that have not been approved that were initially earmarked for the county grant program. We can change that, put those on hold. We could cancel them. There's other things we could, do with that. So there is some flexibility there. But a majority of our capital expenditures that we have on the slate are something that we will have to do eventually. So if we're not funding it with the county grant program, eventually we will have to fund it in another mechanism. And sorry. And also going back to 2006 and looking at the FACs, future projections are almost always worse than actual. And why is that? And that can become a very complicated explanation, but I'll give a very quick one and Tammy can fill in any holes that I miss. So basically when we do our projections, we are estimating that about 60% of the time we will meet the projections. Like, so when we're making, just look at today with the things that happened at the meeting today. CAEDC's not asking for the $50,000. Well, we have that in the budget, so that's coming out. The administrative expense along with that will also happen. But we've also had things on the other side where we haven't budgeted for some things that are going to happen. And so things are moving continually. So we don't know exactly where things are going to be, but we try to base it on most of the time we're going to meet our number and sometimes we don't. Since 2016, there have been a lot of things that changed that were not, I'm going to say, normal, historical. The past 10 years have not been our historical norm. And we've had a lot of things that went really right and not too many things that went wrong. And some of the major things are things like the 911 surcharge. When in 2014, we didn't foreshadow that they were going to make a change where we wouldn't have to subsidize them in the future. Well, and now that's shifting back. That was one of the major players. We also thought we were going to have to pay 100% for the election equipment, and we got a major grant to help pay for that. We're always looking at ways to change and cut things so that our projections don't come to fruition, but that doesn't mean that the projections aren't right. That's where we'll be if we don't make adjustments. So we have to actively be talking about the changes that are coming. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, Dan, first of all, I want to make it very clear to you and to your staff. I'm not criticizing you folks. Making projections to me is very difficult. It's like being a weatherman. They predict more than 2 days down the road. They don't know what the hell's going on. But, I can see the trend here that we really seem to be extremely conservative on these projections. I'd rather see that than the other way, believe me. And I know you can't predict what's going to happen. I get it. I really get it. But when I see like when the FAC in 2022 was presented, it was projected in 2025 that our reserves would be a minus 5 million. Last week's FAC for 2025, we're going to have a positive 9 million. It's a $14 million swing. It's a lot of money. Again, to me, those projections after 3 years, they're hard to really rely on. And I think, but as long as I've been here in 2016, most of the time, we're predicting doom and gloom and it doesn't come out. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but that's my concern. You've answered my question, which leads me to more questions and comments, if I may, quickly. You know, some other ideas, you know, vacant positions, can we freeze them? Okay, have we received and gone after every federal and state aid dollar that's out there? I'm assuming that's the reason for getting a grant administrator. So I'm thinking we can get some dollars in to help out, I hope. You know, as far as our assets and our contracts, are there any vendor contracts out there we can renegotiate, save us some money? Things like that.
That is one of the areas that we are seeing more pressure points than we've seen in the past. And from the time frame, I'm going to say and I don't know the dates exactly, but it was in the 15 to 18 area. Our vendors were willing to lower contracts.
Right.
That's not where we are now. Now they're increasing contracts and not willing. They're like, we won't. Not all of them, but a lot of them. You know, they're having the same pressure points that we are. So that is something that has shifted. Something else I wanted to say, and I missed it. And one of the example is crime care at the prison. Last year, we had a huge increase to that contract.
Yes.
And that is more of the norm anymore, but I'm not going to say we can't.
Right.
MHIDD is the other area where we have chosen to fund the contracts, even though the state is not funding them. That is a substantial impact on our presentation, on our projections.
But we still could check on some of these contracts. Okay. Right. That's all I have for now, and I appreciate you looking into my questions, providing answers.
Anytime.
I'll let Gary go.
Okay.
I've directed most of my questions to you individually, and I think that's what I'm going to continue to do for most of them. Thank you.
So my questions, first of all, I'm telling you this. I'm not in favor of the tax increase this year at all. I don't see a reason for it. I look at this material. Vince and I had very, very similar questions, but I've also, I'm wondering about that 100 days. And I pulled this article from the Government Finance Review that talks about the GFOA, right? And just what you said at the beginning of this, Dana. While fund balance guidelines for the general fund is one of GFOA's most often cited best practices, there are many opportunities for reserve optimization beyond the one-size-fits-all guidance. Really like to see us take a look at this. Really take a look at this and think about what are we doing with our reserves? Why are we holding them in the way we are? What kind of new things can we be looking at? That's one of the things I really want to look at. The second thing I want to look at is this budget does not have to be done until December 31st. And it sure feels like there's a rush on to get it done. And I'm not interested in rushing through it. It's too important. And like I said, I'm not raising taxes on Cumberland County residents. So we've got to figure this out. And we need to figure out where we can cut some expenses in operations because it's there. There's some ways to cut expenses in operations. Just in the paper we chew up. Stacy and I talked about that today. You know, we chew up a lot of paper in an environment where we're investing tremendous dollars in technology. So we've got tech, right? Do we need them both? Can we back one off? Can we work on some things? That's what I'd like to see. I am not ready to make any kind of decision on any budget at this point in time. And want to go back through these numbers and back through what you presented today and really take a look.
Sounds good. And we did, somewhere, we did go through and pull some of the important discretionary funding numbers out. So there is some discretionary funding that can stop very quickly. And we also pulled, like general fund departments, the cost of conferences is 250,000. Staff travel is 120,000. Computers is 195,000. What was the office supplies? I grabbed the wrong one. I have too many different, I have an old one. There it is. I knew it was in there. 2.2. Which includes the computers.
That's excluded.
Excluding it, okay. So the total office supply in the general fund is 2.2 million.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is, it's a lot. So I'd really like to take a look at those things. See where we can cut some operational expenses. And I think that's where it's at.
Okay.
Anything more? I just, that 100 days, right? Are we using that as a savings account? Are we using it as an insurance account? I understand we need some reserves, but I'd like to rethink this. This article, I think, is very, very critical to moving us into maybe a more modern way of looking at things.
Would you mind sharing it with us?
I would love to share it with you.
Thank you.
And I did have one question. I think it's only one. So you gave us numbers. End of 2021, we were at 140 days. End of 2022, we were at 131 days. And this is also through, are these adjusted for the ARPA dollars at all, or the additional expenditures that were actually reimbursed?
So to determine the number of days, we are backing out that additional.
Okay. All right. So that was 140, 131. Now you've given us a number for end of 24, 58 days. But a sobering number. I did not find a number for end of 23. Do you know what that is offhand?
I'm gonna say
107.
I think so. Yeah, it's a long time. Okay. All right. That gives me the context I need. Thank you.
And that's the other thing we watch, is to see the stabilization of the fund balance when it's growing versus when it's declining. Because as it starts declining, it declines at an increasing rate over time.
Okay, any additional on that?
I'm good for now, thank you.
Please, thank you.
Yes, you're good.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, that's all of the topics of discussion on the agenda today. Brings us to number 5, which is other business. To address any additional issues. Staff. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Adjourn.